Greg.
Thank you, Chairman. I very much want to pick up, if I can, on the question of how operators are performing at the moment. And I appreciate some of the answers to this will very much mirror the answers you've just given to the Chairman. But if I can give the example of Chiltern Railways, one of the major routes that runs from London to Birmingham, stopping at multiple parts of Buckinghamshire. My constituents don't, myself included, don't see 70% capacity on Chiltern mainline services. They see way over 100%. And anecdotally, I've had emails in my inbox from people, and I did a drop-in at Princes Risborough station with Chiltern Railway staff, where people were saying they deliberately moved to some of the new development in Princes Risborough or Hadnam because Chiltern used to be so good, and now they're getting on trains that certainly don't feel like 70%, they feel like 150%. So where is the disconnect happening there? Because it's not just Chiltern, it's railways across the whole country that shows passenger numbers still down, but the experience on the train for 50 quid return from Hadnam and Tame Parkway, for example, to now be, for many people, miserable, certainly without a seat, often more akin to the London Underground at rush hour.
Yeah, so Chiltern has had considerable difficulties quite recently. So the Newnham Viaduct, which had to be closed, and the repairs had to be put in place on an emergency basis, and that was delivered, I think, by the 9th of June. That meant that Chiltern had to take a huge load between Oxford and London because it was the only operator that was able to do that. So as a result, there had to be cancellations to the other part of the timetable to accommodate. So actually they really did step up and did a great job, but of course that meant that the existing passengers to certain services did get impacted. There's also, as you'll be aware, between Princes Risborough and Aylesbury been a culvert issue which has led to flooding. So whenever we have heavy rains, then that impacts and causes disruption, and there will be more disruption for a 10-day period when the line has to get closed to ultimately deliver a fix to that. So what I would say, to be fair to the actual operator, is that they have been impacted by asset issues in terms of that viaduct, that culvert, as opposed to the train operator themselves not being able to deliver as well. In addition, I remember when we went to into your constituency, Mr. Smith, for the Select Committee hearing for HS2, and it was notable that of the two lines, one of the lines was running a bus replacement service because the unions were not allowing for rest day working to occur. So as a result, there was a shortage of staff. So that's also impacted Chiltern customers as well. So I'm really sorry for the impact they have had to bear. They have actually all done a superb job to try and deliver to that part. But as you say, people move to areas because of the railway, and we want to get it more reliable. Conrad, is there anything you want to add on to that?
No, I think that's very fair.
I agree with everything you've just said. The Newnham Viaduct works clearly did impact Chiltern. Likewise, actually, I think the problems that we've seen on Avanti have impacted Chiltern, with many Birmingham to London passengers abandoning Avanti because they couldn't rely on them and coming onto Chiltern services as well. But again, back to some of the points that the Chairman was trying to get at, using this as a specific operator example. When you pay 50 quid return to get on a train to Marylebone and at Hadnam and Tame Parkway, and you physically can't get on the train at times, or you're certainly going to stand the whole way in conditions that you would expect from the Jubilee line at rush hour, how can it possibly be that Chiltern, despite all those other issues, and we had these issues before Newnham was a thing, and we still have them now, the works there are completed, how can it possibly be that the operators can't meet that demand, that they can't flex, that they can't get to a position where they know that they're operating at 120, 130, 150% of capacity at those rush hours and not just get longer trains?
Well, again, I would point back to the need for us to reform. Again, it comes back to some of the sort of knotty provisions in these contracts and why they're so essential, because I firmly believe that if train operators have got the right incentives in place, then they will increase service provision. And at the moment, it's sort of down to the taxpayer as to whether that occurs. We want to shift that load back to train operators. And in my view, there's no coincidence that performance isn't where it was pre-COVID, and the sort of competition has actually come out during that same time. So we need to put the incentives back in. Train operators, of course, are currently incentivised in terms of the fee that we pay. The bulk of the fee is based on their ability to perform. So if they don't perform, they don't get paid. So that works to that extent. But in terms of actually coming up with the new ideas, growing the market, we've just lost those incentives, and that's what I want to see put back. When we have that, I think that we'll then see the performance increased. The other challenge, which is undoubtedly a challenge, is the performance on Network Rail, which has not been good enough. Conrad and I speak to the team at Network Rail on a regular basis. I spoke to the Chief Exec and Chairman a couple of days ago with Conrad about ensuring that they are sort of on their game with regards to performance. I do believe that will get better, not least some of the changes that have been put in, agreed with the union about workplace reform, are already delivering some efficiencies in terms of maintenance, so the ability to actually fix matters faster has certainly been noted as a result of those changes. But we really have to hold Network Rail to account to ensure that they do deliver, because a lot of the issues that you see with regards to train operators are actually not the train operators, it's the asset. It's, of course, a very old asset. You know, the Victorians gifted it to us, and it's been a huge success, but it's worn in many parts.